Do you still remember it? Fables.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For this pre-analysis guide for Acheron, I'll be talking about her best relic, Lightcones, team comp, rotations, pros and cons, and if you should pull for her. Do note that this is all speculation and subjected to changes. Here are her required materials and skill priority. For an overview on her kit, she's a pure damage dealer from the Nihility path which doesn't deal dots. She focus on dealing crit damage and doesn't have any energy sources. You also don't necessarily even need a single debuffer with her, as it may not be her best DPS output for F2P players. I will explain later. For her Eidolons, E1 increases crit rate by X% when dealing damage to debuffed enemies. E2 reduce the number of character on the path of Nihility required for the highest value of the trade by X. At the beginning of the wearer's turn, gain X point of X and inflicts X stack of X to an enemy with the most X, with only needing one extra Nihility unit on your team. You can get around 64 to 70% plus DPS boost. E4 when using ulti inflicts ultimate vulnerability to all enemies, increasing the ulti damage taken by X, lasting for X turns. E6 increases crit damage by X% for ultimate damage, and the rest of her abilities will also be considered as ultimate damage. For her best price to performance ratio, it's definitely only her E2 or nothing else, as it has the highest DPS value over any other character, even Imbibed or Lune, by a margin. In short, either E0, E2, E2 plus Sig, or E6. Her signature LC is very decent if you're planning to run Bronya or Sparkle. Good if you have spare pulls, but not recommended for F2P players. She is totally E0 sufficient too. How to build Acheron. For the body you want crit damage only. For the boots you want speed, but if you're running Bronya or Sparkle, go for attack % instead. Sub-stat priority. Speed to 134, total crit rate till 60 to 70%, crit damage and attack % lastly. If you're running Bronya or Sparkle, you don't need any speed substat unless you're running Space Sealing Station, then aim for 120 speed. Only for E2 plus signature Lightcone and above you can aim for some effect hit rate as spare stats due to her signature LC additional buff, and that her E1 increases crit rate where you will have some space. For extra stats. Onto her Relic Set. Her best in slot is the new Relic Set. With Dead Waters, honestly the crit rate boost is the most valuable, since Acheron doesn't have any crit rate buffs. Her second best is both Genius of Brilliant Stars, especially if you're running Silver Wolf, which doesn't lose to her best in slot, and the Lightning Set with a 100% uptime buff. Her weakest would be the Prisoner Set or any mixed bonus set. Unless debuffs counts as dot, then this set would be her best in slot. I'm just going to assume it doesn't, hence placing it at the last place. Acheron isn't a dot dealer, but if you're running at least one dot unit with Acheron for the 6 to 12% def, ignore, and if you have triple S tier substats, it's more than enough. Overall, players should farm for the new Relic Set unless they have triple S tier sets already. And now for the Planar Ornament. Main stat for the rope, you want attack %, and for the orb, attack % over lightning damage boost. You may pick the one with better substats. She a ton of Planar Ornaments at which she can use, they're all pretty much equal. With inert Salsodo, the main upside is that you have the flexibility to run any team comp with Acheron. Only issue is that this set has the lowest DPS, where it needs better substat to keep up with the others. Space Sealing Station works well too, but with Bronya or Sparkle it may be better to drop speed subtats for the extra 12% bonus attack, which is the same with Glameth, but with this set instead you can opt for speed boots with a 2 debuffer setup. For the new pure crit damage stacking set, it has the highest DPS compared to any other relics at max stack. But one main downside is you may not get the max DPS output for MOC, where there at times they may be only 4 enemies in total for both cycles, which can hurt her DPS output and perform worse compared to Salsodo. Unless you have good relic substats, this set would do fine, as at half stack it's going to have the same DPS as the other relics. Her best in slot, no doubt, is the attack % and crit rate set. Due to Acheron not having any crit rate bonuses, and this set comes with 0 restrictions, especially when it comes to team comp with Acheron, where with Salsodo and a Harmony unit it will hurt her skill damage. Overall, all the Planar Ornament sets are roughly equal in DPS, but I recommend players to save up and farm for the new attack % and crit damage set as compared to the other 4 sets. They all have their downsides with either speed requirements, content, and team comps, where they will definitely perform worse unless you have triple S tier substats on them already. Now for her Lightcones, I'll start from the worst to best. She actually has quite a few good options. At last place we have Loop, a 3-star Lightcone which gives a free 48% damage dealt boost only if you're running units which can apply slow. This Lightcone is godsend for players who just started the game. For Mata if you're running Serval, Sampo or Black Swan with Acheron. At second place we have Goodnight Sleep Well and Weltzig LC. Both of these two Lightcones are the next best DPS options, with Goodnight Sleep Well doing way better over Weltz LC. At first place it's her signature LC, increases crit DMG by X%. When the wearer hits the enemy target, there is X% base chance of inflicting X state to the enemy, lasting for X turn. This effect can be triggered X time against each target for every attack the wearer launches. The wearer deals X% more damage to targets afflicted with X state, and damage from ultimate additionally increases by X%. Here are the rough DPS calculations. Overall her LC has some RNG as it might not be worth to sacrifice other stats for effect hit rate, but it's still a very decent SIG LC with high DPS multipliers. And now for her team comp and rotations. The highest DPS output team for both E0 and E2 Acheron would be a Mono Quantum Lightning team comp which includes Sparkle, Silverwolf and Fushwen. Her best F2P team would be Bronya with Silverwolf or Pella and any 5-star sustain. It will even outperform a dual debuffer team comp. Main reason is that Bronya gives higher DPS compared to Pella or Black Swan even with Acheron's max trace buff. For Acheron SIG LC enemies which are already weak to Lightning, Bronya plus Sparkle allows Acheron to take 4 turns in one cycle, where Acheron is able to apply debuffs with her skill to gain 2 stack. In just one cycle her ulti is just missing 1 stack, but you must run a sustain which can apply debuffs. Though this team comp is not for her E2, as it's better to have one debuffer to get her max DPS output. Her weakest team comp would be a dual debuffer team comp even at E0. You can run Pella, Welt, Gwynathan, Black Swan, Sampo, but Kafka isn't really recommended due to skill point issues. Though don't get me wrong, this team comp is strong enough to be able to clear MOC 12 easily as long as the enemy bosses are weak to lightning. For her dual DPS team comp for E0 or E2 it's ideal to run with Sparkle due to skill point issues. Your sustain must be able to apply debuffs and your secondary DPS unit just has to match the enemy boss weakness. This team comp may not even be weaker than her Mono Quantum team. With Acheron at E2 with a secondary DPS Nihility Unit, she's going to be on crack, especially with Kafka being able to apply debuffs from her follow-up attacks and signature LC, though kind of unnecessary. Now for the sustain tier list with Acheron. If both Aventurine and Fushwen is running a debuff LC, Fushwen will be slightly better due to Aventurine low ulti uptime. Recommended to pull for Fushwen especially if you have Topaz LC, and even more upsides with Silverwolf. Unless you're planning to pull Aventurine for your follow-up ATK units or his E2. Jeopard is double S tier with Topaz LC. His survivability isn't as good, but he does have extra taunt value to trigger more debuff with Topaz's LC. Huo and Luocha would be just S tier, where it kind of depends on the enemies you're facing and your support ulti uptime with Huo, though they're both still really strong. Also Gallagher is the best 4-star sustain for Acheron due to him being able to apply debuffs. The only reason I'm placing him at S tier is due to him lacking sustainability, but his a 4-star unit can't complain about it. For Acheron's pros and cons. Pros: F2P friendly. Best animations in the game. Does not need to run 2 additional Nihility units with her even at E0. Highest DPS unit which is on par or better than Imbibitor Lune or Jinglio. Her E2 has the highest potential and DPS scaling in the game. Universal, as there are a ton of viable team comps with her. May have higher DPS potential with more Nihility and Harmony units in future. She has the highest DPS for a mono team comp with Silverwolf. Cons: she's just a lightning DPS unit. Some units won't work with her. Ideal to have a sustain unit which can apply debuffs. Overall there's nothing really to talk about as she's simple and straightforward. So should you pull for Acheron? If you have the right units with her? Yes. If you already have Kafka? No. If you like her design? Yes. And that's it for this guide.